It's Gordon Majak here, back with another episode of Timeless Pop, Rock, and Soul. And today we are going back to my childhood there in the mid 60s for another song that, like the Beach Boys video that we did the other day for Surfer Girl, this is another song today that I have had such a long and deep connection to emotionally and such great memories of for a very personal reason. And I will tell you what that is in just a moment. Before we get to that, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment below. Let me know what you think of all this music. Okay, now, the other day, I posted the Beach Boys video for Surfer Girl. And in that video, I was talking about how that song, which came out when I was only 5 years old, but as I explained, as that song aged and as I aged, I always felt just even a few years after that. So let's say when I was in that 7, 8 to 9-year-old range, that's when the Beach Boys song really connected to me. And of course, because the song was such a big hit, it was always being played. And even well into the years after its release. It was just such a classic song. And that was sort of the impact that that song had on me and has always had on me, is how it can take me back to that time when there was an innocence and a purity, not only in myself as a young boy growing up here in the mid-60s, there was still some shred of innocence and purity, it seemed, left in the culture. And certainly in the music, there was a really beautiful, just timeless sense of innocence and purity in the great Beach Boys song, Surfer Girl. And I identified with that. And that Beach Boy, Surfer Girl lifestyle was something that seemed like something that a young boy could aspire to, if that made sense, right? A fun lifestyle that you could aspire to as a little kid, right? Well, this song today came out actually just about a year and a half after Surfer Girl there. And like Surfer Girl, this song was such an immediate and such a huge hit that it just continued to linger on the radio and in the public consciousness for the next several years, right? It was such a classic and such a big hit. And I'll tell you the personal connection to this here, but I want to show you the record because there's something else on here too. So here we have the great Little Anthony and the Imperials, Going Out of My Head. And as you can see, also on this album, right, was a song called Hurt So Bad. And that was the very next single after the song that we're doing today, Going Out of My Head. And I remember this so clearly from my childhood that I made such a strong connection with this song first. And then when they followed it up with Hurt So Bad, it's like my awareness and my memory of these guys, Little Anthony and the Imperials, is that those two songs, once they came out as singles there in late 1964, going into 1965 for Hurt So Bad, both of those songs were such huge hits and such instant classics that they were just constantly played on the radio, and they were just a permanent part of my childhood. Those two monster hit songs, both of which I absolutely love. Now, the connection, the personal connection to this song today, Going Out of My Head, is sort of a variation on the theme of the purity and the innocence that we talked about with the Beach Boys song, Surfer Girl. In the case of Surfer Girl, there was no particular surfer girl in my life as a young boy that I was not identifying this song to anyone personally. It was more just the beauty and the innocence in the song. Like I said, the innocence that was still in me and still felt to be in the world. And that surfer, the way those lyrics are talking about that surfer girl and how it could be and all that, it was more of it felt more like a conceptual thing and more of a almost a it's still very romantic, but it was almost not necessarily geared to an individual, if that makes any sense. With this song going out of my head now, so this was a year and a half later that the song came out, and as I said, we're talking about going into 1965 here, so I would have been 7 years old. So to me, I'm looking at that 3-year span between 1965 and 1968, 1965 and 1966 and 1967. That 3-year span there when I was 7, 8, and 9 years old, and is when to me these songs were just so cemented into my consciousness, because even as a young boy, there was just something in these songs, Surfer Girl and this one today. And then the next video is going to be sort of the capper of this little theme here that we're on with the innocence of that time period there in the 60s. Somewhere in there, and I'm guessing that it would have been when I was 8 or 9. So let's say that's 1966 or 1967. Somewhere in there, in that time frame, I got put into swimming lessons in the summer. And if you've ever heard the term puppy love, it's a term we used to use back in the 60s and the 70s, which referred, of course, to that very, very innocent childhood crush that you may have on a classmate or a friend or, that kind of a thing. Puppy love. It was two little kids, or a kid that has a crush on another kid, right? When you're 7 or 8 or 9 years old, whatever, right? And in my case, when I got put into swimming lessons, and I'm just guessing again, maybe I was 8 years old, 9 years old, and I'm trying to think of how old the lifeguard that was trying to teach me how to swim must have been. But she might as well have been, a Hollywood star, because even though if I was 8 or 9, let's say she was, I don't know, how old do you have to be a lifeguard in the 60s to teach little kids to swim? Let's say she was 14, maybe something like that, a volunteer lifeguard teaching little kids to swim. 14, 13, 14, 15, something like that. But to a little 8-year-old or let's say 9-year-old Gordy Majak, there was such a personal connection of the song, which, like I said, was just ever present after it came out. It just never went away there in the 60s, and Hurt So Bad, like I said, which came on the heels of it, just kept that wave going for that group, Little Anthony and the Imperials. So those songs never left the consciousness, and for some reason, all I can think is that song was still just getting played on the radio, and musically, I love it anyway. It's just so beautiful, and the vocals are incredible, and the arrangement's incredible. And it's an incredible piece of music any way you slice it. But there was a definite personal identification for me as that 8 or 9-year-old boy with that lifeguard who was trying to teach me to swim that summer of 66 or 67. And, I just have, maybe it was, the transistor radio and hearing that song, when I was there at my swimming lessons, or when I was in the car on the way to the lessons or on the way home or something. Somehow a personal connection got made. Yeah. Such different times. And I am just so grateful that I grew up then and not now. From the summer of 1964, it is the great Little Anthony and the Imperials, Going Out of My Head. Now, this song, not quite as big of a hit as their first big monster hit back there in the summer of 58, the summer that I was born, which was Tears on My Pillow. You remember that one, what a classic that was. Not quite as big of a hit as that, but still a pretty darn big hit for this one. number 6 on the pop chart and number 6 on the R&B chart. Across the board, not too bad there. For Little Anthony in the Imperials, this is going out of my head. And I was going out of my head for that lifeguard. Ooh-wee.
Well, I think I'm going out of my head. Yes, I think I'm going out of my head. Over you. Over you. I want you to want me. I need you so badly. I can't think of anything but you. And I think I'm going out of my head. 'Cause I can't explain the tears that I shed over you. Over you.
I'm going to stop it way early just because, again, this song builds up to such a great climax and I want to really let it play out. But what a voice on Little Anthony. Oh my goodness. I mean, you take their 3 biggest hits there. Tears on My Pillow, just a great ballad. This one, and then Hurt So Bad, that's their 3 top hit songs. What? That's not a little, that's a career, okay? 3 great songs, and they're all so good. That's a career right there for Little Anthony and the Imperials.
I see you each morning, but you just walk past me. You don't even know that I exist. Going out of my head, over you. Out of my head, over you. Out of my head, day and night, night and day and night. Go away, I must be away to you. There's no reason why my being shy should keep us apart. And I think I'm going out of my head. Yes, I think I'm going out of my head. Oh, out of my head, over you. Out of my head, over you. Out of my head, day and night, night and day and night. Oh, all right, yeah, all right,
Pretty passionate vocal there from Little Anthony. Wow. Yeah, that just puts me right back 7, 8, 9, swimming lessons, lifeguard. And that song just never left. And of course, it was remade so many times. And then just a few years later, when the Letterman's big hit version dropped out there, and so it was like this song just never, and it was never not there. And I'm so glad that that's the case because I loved it from the very beginning. And to have that personal connection to it, even though it was obviously all in my imagination, that's why they call it puppy love, right? Yeah, I don't think that teenage lifeguard gave 2 you-know-whats about little Gordy Majak and his swimming lessons. But she'll just never know what she meant to me back then, you know. It's like when you're a little kid, you know, you have a crush on the babysitter, you know, it's that kind of a thing. And what a time. You know, there was still a little bit of that innocence in this one. You know, it was still there. Some of it had we'd taken some hits, you know, like I said, with JFK a few years earlier and, you know, Vietnam, and it just never seemed to end. And one thing after another there in the 60s. But yeah, what a time. Wow. And that innocence is in the music. You can just feel it in the music. It's just there's a sweetness and a romantic. I may have personalized it, as an adolescent in an adolescent way, but the song itself, of course, is just a supreme achievement by adults. So let's make no mistake about that. Little Anthony and the Imperials, Going Out of My Head. Dang, one of my all-time favorites. I know I say that every time, but really true in this case. Always just love this one. We're going to come back with the third and final installment in this little theme here of innocence lost, and see where we go next in the 1960s with Little Gordy Majak. Don't miss that. Coming right up. See ya on the rebound.